Welcome back to WeAreSC's Recruiting Roundup with Scott Schrader. I'm Dylan Brashier, and as you can see, we're not on Friday. We're actually on a Monday. So for future reference, we will no longer be on Fridays. We'll be on Mondays, so stay tuned for that. And before we get into the meat and potatoes of the episode, I want to thank our sponsor, Bird Dogs. Thanks so much to Bird Dogs for sponsoring this video and sending me some of their signature Bird Dogs shorts. Their design fits slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving me a truly sculpted look. Other shorts are made of restricting, stiff cotton, which Bird Dogs fixes this using cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but stretches to get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. Go to birddogs.com/USC or enter promo code USC at checkout for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/USC or promo code USC at checkout for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take off your Bird Dogs, and that's a promise. Okay, moving on. And Scott, you've been traveling this past week. What have you been up to? What have you been seeing?
Yeah, I hit the road. I want to get out and see some of the guys that maybe I haven't had a chance to talk to after they took their official visits in June. And started that off with Jaylen Harvey this past Monday. Went and saw him at Quince Orchard. I was in Baltimore and just kind of made the 1 hour trip to his school. And I think USC fans, we wrote an article, and I think a lot of the USC fans were surprised that USC is in it, and it's actually a really, really tight race right now between USC, Penn State, and Florida for Jaylen Harvey. Jaylen is if not the top edge prospect for Coach Roy Manning. He's like right up there. I just saw another one too in Atlanta that we'll hit on here in a second. But Jaylen Harvey went to a school and he didn't know, his coach knew I was coming, but he didn't know I was coming. I show up and he's dressed in USC gear. So take that for what it's worth, USC fans.
For sure, definitely. And then you also saw someone else, right? It was Jaylen Harvey, and who else?
And then I went to Atlanta. And so I stopped by four schools while I was in Atlanta. I went to Carrollton to see class of 2026 quarterback Julian Lewis. He could end up actually reclassifying to the class of 2025. Chad Simmons just had an article a couple of days ago on On3 confirming that that's actually a possibility, and Julian was quoted as saying such. So I went and saw him. The interest is really, really, really high. Lincoln Riley brings up the resume that he has with quarterbacks, and it was quite astonishing when you do look at what Lincoln Riley has done with the quarterbacks. I think he had 5 starting quarterbacks since he's been a head football coach, starting at Oklahoma, obviously, and now at USC, and 4 of them were Heisman Trophy finalists, and 3 of them have won Heisman trophies. So
pretty good track record.
Julian Lewis has got USC high on his list for obvious reasons. And that same day, I actually went and saw Eddrick Houston, which is another guy, maybe not quite as similar as Jaylen Harvey. I'm not sure USC is neck and neck with Ohio State for Eddrick Houston, but he's a 5-star defensive lineman. Sean Nua is after him hard. And I did find out that his interest is also a lot higher than I think USC fans thought. And in fact, one of the coaches at Buford High School was saying, Ohio State shouldn't get too happy yet. So we'll see. And what I found out as part of the short stop at Buford, I was there for an hour and a half, was just how these coaches from other parts of the country are viewing USC right now, specifically with Lincoln Riley as the head football coach. And some of these coaches are just kind of like looking at Lincoln Riley like he's the next Nick Saban, Kirby Smart. He gets that first championship under his belt, and God knows where that's going to lead. So, I've gone on a little bit of a off-topic rant here on that. But the other 2, I went and saw Mike Matthews at Parkview High School in Lilburn, Georgia. I think there's a commitment coming up for him at Tennessee. So I think USC fans are kind of hoping that he would be one of the guys that would be added to the class of Xavier Jordan and Ryan Pelham, but I don't think he's going to be that third receiver. So then I went and saw Kameryn Fountain, edge commit, and I'm telling you, this guy's going to be another big-time guy. He's a lot like Braylon Shelby, just really, really big, thick, athletic. He's the kind of guys that USC has not been getting over the last few years. So it's going to be interesting to see how the defensive line class finishes out, but they're doing really, really well at edge right now.
For sure.
And so that was Georgia.
No worries. And then you said you see commitment coming for Mike Matthews, not in USC's way, but In other news, Taylor Tatum has released his commitment date for July 21st. I want to know your thoughts on that and how USC plays a role in there.
Yeah, I haven't really checked up on the latest on really anyone. I just thought I'd wait until we kind of approached a little bit closer to those dates, and we're getting there. But in a couple of days, we'll kind of really check up on that. Look, USC has not offered another running back in the class of 2024, so they have not been told by Taylor Tatum that he's going to Oklahoma. So I know that USC was still holding out hope that they could get him. All of the predictions right now for Oklahoma. In fact, if tomorrow was the day, I would be inclined to switch my prediction from USC to Oklahoma right now. But we don't know. And again, we got down to last year. There were a couple guys that USC fans thought were going to go to Georgia. And Deuce and just ended up being one of those last second things where Lincoln Riley went in and did that in-home visit and flipped a couple of guys. Walker Lyons was the other one. So we'll see it. And until Taylor Tatum commits to Oklahoma, there's obviously still a chance for USC. So he's coming up on the 21st, which will segue us into, there's another announcement coming. And is this somebody that you've seen play at all or seen on film? Kyngstonn Viliamu-Asa.
He's Viliamu-Asa. Yeah, he's committing on July 23rd, 2 days after Taylor Tatum. And I know Ohio State and Notre Dame are making their big impacts on him. I haven't seen him on tape yet, but I'm wondering how USC, makes that last push, like you said, the in-home visits. I'm wondering if those will be a factor used in this commitment.
Yeah, it's the in-home visits are going to come later in the process because the coaches aren't going to be able to get out and go into the homes again until I believe it's going to be sometime in November. And I always forget the date when they can do that. So that's a ways down the road. But this will be another topic that we will be having throughout the recruiting process. Definitely. Is if you see USC performing on the field as we expect to, with all the returning and all of the additions this offseason defensively. You might see a lot of changes happen towards the end of the season with recruiting. There might be some guys that all of a sudden are now looking at USC a little bit differently than they currently are. You might have some guys that are committed to other schools that are looking, gosh, do I really want to leave Southern California and go to school A or school B when I can stay here and have a chance to compete for a championship and go play in the NFL? So, we don't know how a lot of this stuff is going to finish up, but a lot of these recruitments, it's cliche. It's not over until signing day, but that's just kind of, some now say it's not even over at that point sometimes. But, there is a lot left in the recruiting process. It's 4 months left, essentially, if I'm doing my math correctly. What do we got? We got August, September, October, November. So basically about 5 months. And there's just going to be a lot of changes that are going on. But currently, USC has the number 6 ranked recruiting class. And I know a lot of USC fans are expecting them to probably finish in the top 10. I would think that USC is going to ultimately finish in the top 5. So it's all going to depend on how they play in the football field this season, though.
100%. And segueing along with that, we had a red hot July, a lot of commits. I think it was 14 or 17. And this month, kind of sparse in July. Would you say that the hype for USC is, dying down, or is that just we're just, reloading?
Yeah, you couldn't keep up with the pace that they were on. It's just like ridiculous. 14 commits in June. That's just unprecedented and unheard of for USC. Of course, the recruiting process has changed, and you get a lot more commitments in June and July now than you used to. But that was still crazy what was going on in June at USC. So it had to slow down. Obviously there could be a couple of commitment announcements that they go USC's way. I think there won't be a lot of people thinking the momentum has really ceased. But there are, the couple that we've mentioned here are coming up. There's going to be potentially a couple more in Jaylen Harvey, at least in early August, when some of these guys are going to do it. So, Kyngstonn is one of those guys to where, if he's just the only one that ends up committing the rest of the year, that would probably be considered a huge recruiting class for USC just by adding him. Some USC fans are probably going to look at me like I'm crazy, but to me, he's that big of an impact, and he means that much to a recruiting class.
Perfect. So to cap off today's show, we will end it with the recruiting rapid roundup, where I spit out as many topics as I can in a minute. So let's start it off right now. Pretty controversial, but Reggie Bush's Heisman Trophy has been put back in Heritage Hall. It was removed due to the sanctions put in by the NCAA regarding being paid in college. That's all in the past, though. But for now, his trophy is back in Heritage Hall. Next up, Caleb Williams wins the ESPY Award for Best Male College Athlete. No shocker, he also won the Heisman, but the last USC quarterback that won that was Matt Leinart. And now moving on, I don't know if you're into betting, Scott, but the lines for Caleb Williams' stats and touchdowns have just been put for the over-under. Let me read it right here. The stats, they're set at 3,600.5 yards and 34.5 passing touchdowns. So what do you think? Last year, he put up 3,700 passing yards and 34 touchdowns. What do you think about this year?
I agree with a lot of people. There's been quite a few people who've been weighing in on this topic, on what the expectations would be for Caleb Williams. And most are thinking that he's gonna outdo what he did last year. And I happen to agree with that. So whatever the over under is, I don't have that exact number like popping out of my head. I'm going with the over.
The over. Yeah, I mean, definitely. If I did the math, and it's like there's 12 games in the regular season, so he needs to average 300 yards per game to make that 3,600 mark. And I think he can do that. He hit over 400, I think, about 4 times last season, and not many games under 300, I'll say that. So I think those all lining up, he's definitely going to hit over 3,600, and I think over 34 passing touchdowns too. I wouldn't be shocked if he recreates like a Joe Burrow 2019 type season.
Yeah, he could have that type of year, absolutely. And we've talked about this a bunch of times. There's just going to be so many different weapons that he's going to have. They may be young, but there's going to be a lot of guys on that football field that maybe weren't the main guys last year, and those numbers could be crazy this year, actually.
Definitely. A lot of points and a lot of yards will happen this season, and that'll wrap up the Rapid Roundup and Recruiting Roundup. So thank you very much for tuning in on this Monday, and we'll see you guys next Monday. Bye now.
Right on.